Hello, welcome to the Consumer Quarter. I'm Simon Palin. On the show today, fears new social networking websites like Google Plus could dilute social networking as a whole.
Now we start to see another major player, which starts to make it more challenging for people to say, well, which platform do I want to be on, or do I want to be on both?
And a new age way to do the weekly shop. But first, it's like biting the hand that feeds them. Grocery manufacturers are rarely brave enough to publicly criticise Coles or Woolworths, but recently two big food makers have done just that. Heinz and bread maker Goodman Fielder say the supermarket heavyweights are very hard to deal with. It's not just high labour costs and the spiralling Australian dollar making life hard for local food manufacturers. There's also Australia's big supermarkets.
We're seeing a real price war between the two major supermarkets, really forcing down margins to manufacturers.
The supermarket sector is dominated by two players which are regularly accused of driving a very hard bargain.
The clear reality is the market dominance of Coles and Woolworths is felt right through the supply chain.
Farmers, consumer groups and many others regularly criticise Australia's supermarket heavyweights. However, it's very rare for grocery suppliers to join in.
Remember that, they really need to have their products in Coles or Woolworths, otherwise they can't get their products in front of Australian consumers.
But the global food manufacturer Heinz has spoken out. In the US, Heinz's chief financial officer says the Australian supermarket sector is an inhospitable environment for suppliers. Heinz didn't name Coles or Woolworths directly, but the manufacturer says it blames the sector's two biggest players for an erosion of its profits.
You know you've got a very serious problem in the supermarket sector when a major supplier like Heinz speaks out about the market dominance of the duopoly.
And Heinz is not alone. Goodman Fielder blames this year's $167 million full-year loss partially on the heavily concentrated grocery retailing sector. The long-running tensions between the grocery manufacturers and the big supermarkets flared up in January when both supermarkets slashed the price of their home brand milks, placing further pressure on branded suppliers. And both Coles and Woolworths have also devoted a growing amount of shelf space to their own private label items.
The whole issue of private label is very serious. At the moment, about 25% of the market is private label. Both major supermarkets indicate that they're aiming at 40%.
Neither Coles nor Woolworths would respond on camera. In statements, both said they made no apologies for getting good value for customers. Well, despite those efforts to get good value for customers, it seems many consumers are favouring rival supermarket Aldi. It has the highest customer satisfaction rating of all three supermarkets. According to Roy Morgan's Supermarket Satisfaction Report, Aldi scored 91%. Coles was the runner-up with 87.5% and Woolworths scored a few percent less to come in third. And consumers in South Korea are being offered a new age way of avoiding the supermarkets altogether. A major retailer there has opened what appears to be the world's first virtual store. In a train station, shoppers who download a certain application on their smartphones can then scan barcodes of life-size products displayed on the wall.
Scan the QR code with your phone and the product automatically lands in your online cart. When the online purchase is done, it will be delivered to your door right after you get home.
There are more than 500 items on offer, including food, electronics, office supplies and toiletries. Back home now, and supermarket owners in the Northern Territory say they support a new law banning single-use plastic bags. The local government says it will help make the top end greener and cleaner. The Northern Territory has become the second place to ban plastic bags, behind South Australia.
Lightweight plastic bags may be banned, but shoppers seem to be getting by.
I think it's a great idea for the environment.
Not inconvenient?
I often forget my bags, so I'll just have to really remember to bring them.
Some were caught out during the lunchtime rush.
It's good for the environment, so I'm happy to pay for it today.
But most were happy something is being done to stop 40 million bags going into landfill each year.
All these millions of plastic bags that are going home and being thrown away, it just seems a bit wasteful.
Biodegradable, paper, heavy-duty plastic and even calico. The new law has created a whole new range for shops to market and sell.
Put it in your purse, you put it in your basket, put it in your pocket.
And it's also given the Chief Minister a chance to spruik his government's green credentials.
I'm going to pay that small price myself. It is a small inconvenience and I look forward to doing the family shopping on the weekend.
Environmentalists say the law will protect marine life, especially turtles, and they've given it a big tick.
A lot of turtles around the territory will be breathing a sigh of relief in the years ahead because there'll be fewer things to choke on in the seas, and that's great.
The Northern Territory is only the second jurisdiction in the country to get rid of plastic bags completely.
That's the ABC's James Glenday with that story. And just a final note on the supermarkets, Woolworths is trying to tap into the growing do-it-yourself home renovation market. In a joint venture with a US company, it's hoping to open 100 stores over the next 5 years to go head-to-head with Bunnings.
Tough economic times mean that people spend a lot more on their home. So rather than going out, people tend to spend more time eating at home, and I think rather than moving house, you're more inclined to renovate or redecorate and I guess, make the best of the house that you're in. So we think we're really well positioned.
However, some analysts aren't as positive, saying it's unlikely Masters will be as successful as Bunnings in the long term.
But I think this is one where Woolies might get a blood nose. They're up against a very tough competitor, and they've given that competitor more than 3 years' notice that they're entering the market.
There are currently 20 Masters stores under construction. Well, Australia's love of huge houses may be coming to an end, but at the moment homes down under are still the biggest in the world. A recent report by CommSec shows the average floor space for an Australian home has fallen to 214 square metres. Now that compares to 195 square metres in the US and 177 square metres in Japan. Here's property analyst Andrew Wilson on why Australia does have the biggest houses in the world.
I think there are a number of factors, Simon, at play here. One is, of course, that Australia has a lower density of population than comparable cities. And, of course, long-term economic prosperity has given Australians the capacity to build larger houses. And I think also that from that prosperity, we've also developed a culture for the quarter-acre block, the larger home, that through particularly the 50s and 60s became an entrenched factor in the aspirational buyer.
That's Andrew Wilson from Australian Property Monitors there. And still on property, we know retailers around Australia often complain about how expensive it is to rent shop space. Well, now a new report shows Sydney's Pitt Street is now considered a more expensive place to rent a shop than in Paris. The average cost of renting on the Sydney shopping strip has jumped 33% in the last year to $10,000 a square metre. New York's Fifth Avenue has the highest rents, and Pitt Street jumped from 9th to 4th spot in front of the Champs-Élysées. The report says global retail markets have rebounded strongly during that time, but not, it seems, in Australia.
Australia, I think, has been languishing under the burden of a materially changed consumer. We've never seen them so conservative, despite the fact that the underlying fundamentals of the economy are quite strong.
The report shows the redevelopment of the Pitt Street Mall and the influx of high-profile brands has contributed to the rent rise. Well, ever since the day it launched with a bang in June, the social networking site Google Plus has been compared to its more established peer Facebook. It's early days, but analysts say so far Google Plus hasn't knocked either Facebook or Twitter off course. The statistics for Google Plus aren't yet being collected, but it's thought that the search giant's fledgling social network now has around 27 million users at this point. Now that compares to Facebook's 600 million users. Well, either way, some analysts believe the emergence of new sites could dilute the value of each and turn some people off social networking as a whole. Earlier I spoke to technology analyst Ross Dawson.
It's only in looking at the social networks over the last decade or so as they have grown, it's actually helped people to have Facebook as a dominant network, having taken over from many others aspirants like Orkut and Friendster. Now we start to see another major player, which starts to make it more challenging for people to say, well, which platform do I want to be on, or do I want to be on both? So this is going to be, could put people off, some people off in terms of making some choices about what social networks they use. But overall, this addition to the social network universe makes the possibilities of connecting how we choose more compelling.
But in some ways it could reduce connectivity as well, because before Google Plus existed, people could basically go onto Facebook and search for people, and if they were into any social networking, it's likely they were on Facebook. Now there's a chance that they may not be on Facebook, but they might be somewhere else. So in some ways connectivity is reduced as well, isn't it?
One of the key issues here is the idea of social network interoperability. which basically means that you can either move your social network from Facebook to Google Plus or from Google Plus to another network. And in fact, Google Plus from the outset allows you to export your social network to wherever you want. And beyond that, we can actually see some flow of information between different social networks. That is something would be massive value to consumers, but the competitors at play, Facebook and Google, don't like each other, so not allowing that flow of information. But we are seeing shifts where more and more there will be the flow of information across social networks, so we don't necessarily see them as entirely separate networks.
And there are a lot of users who aren't happy with Facebook, with privacy reasons and access to information and the fact that Facebook owns the information. But there's not many people that have signed up to Google Plus either, is there?
Google Plus has been the fastest growing technology platform in history, which, as in 20 million users in 2 months. And that's obviously Google has got a pretty good starting point in terms of its user base to be able to get people going. So the question is really how fast it grows from there. So the pace of growth of Google Plus has been extraordinary. The question is whether from 20 million it can start to get to the 100 or 200 million, which starts to put it on a par with Facebook in some of the developed countries around the world. And so that's the jury is out.
Okay, Ross Dawson, thanks for your time.
My pleasure.
And finally, just before we go, some of the world's rarest diamonds have gone on display in Sydney. The precious pinks are up for tender, but you'll pay a pretty penny to secure one of these sparklers. This collection could fetch close to $50 million.
It's the most exclusive diamond sale in the world. It's by invitation only, and they're looking to buy for collectors or some of the high-end jewelers that you know about, like Harry Winston, Graf or Tiffany, for example.
Australia produces 90% of the world's pink diamonds, and supply is running out.
The mine has only about another 9 to 10 years left of its life, and then they're all gone.
That's a shame. Anyway, that's all for this edition of the Consumer Quarter. Thanks for joining us. If you've got any story ideas or just an interesting consumer insight, please get in touch on Facebook, search for the Consumer Quarter page and click like if you want to be kept up to date. And we'll see you next time.